UN chief warns of the West Bank annexation and escalating violence. Israel deploys tanks in the West Bank amid annexation calls. And the European Union suspends sanctions on Syria to boost aid and reconstruction. It's 8 p.m. Cairo local time and you're now watching Q News. We begin tonight's bulletin with the latest developments in the West Bank. United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has expressed his profound concern regarding the growing calls for annexation and the intensifying violence perpetrated by colonists in the West Bank. Speaking before the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva, Guterres stated that the ceasefire in Gaza is fragile, emphasizing the need to prevent the renewal of hostilities at any cost.
Girls out of school and women at arm's length from basic rights.
Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar has stated that Israel is defending its security in the occupied West Bank after tanks were sent into the territory for the first time in more than 20 years. This comes as Israel ordered the military to prepare for an extended stay in the West Bank. Tens of thousands of Palestinians have already been displaced from their homes in the West Bank over the past month, as the Israeli military has moved into the crowded refugee camps of flashpoint cities like Jenin and Tulkarm.
And the Islamic Jihad will step down.
Israel has sent tanks into the occupied West Bank for the first time in more than 20 years, as it ordered the military to prepare for an extended stay. The move came as a fragile ceasefire in Gaza hit new hurdles after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered a stop to the release of Palestinian detainees due to be freed under the truce in retaliation for public displays of Israeli detainees handed over in exchange in Gaza. The West Bank, seized by Israel in the 1967 Middle East War, is seen by Palestinians as the core of a future Palestinian state, along with Gaza, but there have been increasingly open calls by Israeli hardliners for its annexation. For the 35th consecutive day, Israeli occupation army has continued its aggression on the city of Jenin and its camp, which has resulted so far in the deaths of at least 27 Palestinians. Israeli forces expanded operations across Jenin, storming multiple towns and destroying infrastructure. Armored tanks entered Jenin, reaching the camp and the Jabariyat area. In Al-Qabatiyya, forces imposed a 48-hour curfew, bulldozed streets and seized homes as military posts. Troops also stormed Yamun, deploying snipers and raiding homes, while in Silat al-Harithiyya, they forced shop closures, and at dawn, bulldozers caused widespread destruction in Burqin. Israeli occupation forces have continued their onslaught on Tulkarm city and its camp for the 29th consecutive day, and on Nur Shams camp for the 16th consecutive day. Israeli forces reinforced their presence in Tulkarm and its refugee camps, deploying infantry and converting vacant homes into military outposts. a full siege on Tulkarm and Nur Shams camps continue, blocking entry, exit and aid deliveries, leaving residents without food, water and medicine as relief efforts remain obstructed. Brazil has expressed deep concern over escalating Israeli military operations in West Bank refugee camps. Brazil's foreign ministry condemned the use of tanks in the West Bank refugee camps, denouncing the forced displacement of 40,000 residents as a violation of international law. The ministry urged Israel to allow uninterrupted humanitarian aid and UNRWA operations. Brazil also called for a full suspension of Israeli military actions in the region. And for more insights, we now move to Rehem in our newsroom. Rehem.
Thank you, Hani. To help us analyze the current situation in the West Bank, we're joined from Ramallah by political science professor Dr. Abdel Nasser Makki. Thank you for joining us here on Qnews. Sir, firstly, let's start off by asking, what is your reaction to the UN Secretary General, his concerns about the growing annexation calls and the intensified violence in the West Bank, given the movement of tanks there as well?
Yes, I think this is one of the concerns of the Guterres, the Secretary of the United Nations, but I think it's not enough because, that there should be many things should be done in order to stop the Israeli from continuation of the aggression against, the West Bank, especially in the north part of West Bank, Jenin, Tulkarm, and the refugees camp. And I think the United Nations should also condemn all these, things that done by the Israeli and action in the ground, especially when they enter the tank, which is from 2002, and now they're using the tank in order to, destroy the refugee camp in Tulkarm and also in Jenin. They started with Jenin, and now they will also continue in Nur Shams in Tulkarm and Tulkarm refugee camp. So I think this is not enough. It's good, but it's not enough in order to stop the Israeli from their attacking and from their, aggression against the Palestinian civilian in the north of West Bank. And as it's mentioned in the report, that about 40,000 people have been, displacement from their refugee camps and from Jenin to Tulkarm, and also the curfew from about from 30, 40 days in Jenin and in Tulkarm, and also before 2 days the curfew was applied on the Kabatia, which is close to Jenin.
So, sir, given the military operations taking place in the West Bank, specifically in Jenin and Tulkarm, in addition to the forced displacement, as you've said, can you tell us more about the humanitarian situation there?
Yes, I think the humanitarian situation is miserable there. The people now, they are under the curfew. The people couldn't, that's even they try to get the water and the food, but the military, the Israeli military, they didn't allow them to get all these things. So I think we will witness like a miserable situation, and I think there will be like starvation, the lack of food, the lack of water, and even the Israeli tank now, and also the bulldozer, they, that they destroy the infrastructure in the refugee camp in Jenin and Tulkarm, and also they destroy about 100 houses there. The people now, they didn't have, they couldn't, that's even stay in their home because the Israeli told them to leave from the refugee camp, and now the people with a miserable condition out of the refugee camps, their places, they went to some villages near close to Tulkarm and Jenin, and I think it's we will witness like a miserable situation and catastrophic for the people, from the medical, from the food, and also the water, solid waste, the sewage. All these things, they will be a problem for the people in the Jenin and also the city of Jenin and the city of Tulkarem, which is the biggest two cities beside Nablus. It's not just here, it's also for the villages close to Tulkarem and Jenin. The people there are suffering from the curfew and from the, that siege, which is forced by the Israeli army.
So, sir, will there be some sort of legal or diplomatic repercussions or consequences arising from the forced displacement of the Palestinians in the West Bank? Will there be some sort of international action towards this?
You know that even now the people or the international community is busy with what's happening now in exchange of the deal of exchange in Gaza, and all the views now going to Gaza. But for the West Bank, I think the international community, many of the countries, they condemn what is happening in West Bank, especially now the Israeli, some of the ministries of the Israeli government try to, that's to apply the annexation concept, which is based on disperse the people from the refugee camps, and they want to, that try to damage or to destroy the concept of the right of return for the refugee camps. This is one thing. The other thing is that some of the countries, they, as I said, condemned, but it's not enough. They should be, especially for the United States of America, they didn't do anything. And also, what is happening in this refugee camp or Jenin and Tulkarem is coming from the supporting the United States of America to government of Israel in order to go ahead with this, especially for the, that annexation and also for the displacement of the people.
Well, unfortunately, we're out of time there, so thank you so much for joining us from Ramallah. That was political science professor Dr. Abdel Nasser Makki. Thank you for joining us here on Q News. And now back to you, Hani, in the studio.
Thank you, Rehem. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has arrived at the Tel Aviv District Court to take the stand in his long-running corruption trial. Netanyahu arrived with his legal team after he was ordered to testify in the 2019 indictment in 3 cases involving gifts from millionaire friends and allegedly seeking regulatory favors for media tycoons in return for favorable news coverage. He has denied any wrongdoing. In Syria, the European Union has suspended a set of sanctions imposed on Syria, including those related to energy, transportation and construction. In a statement, the EU said it aims to facilitate engagement with Syria, its people and its companies in key sectors such as energy and transportation. It also seeks to ease financial and banking transactions related to these sectors, as well as those necessary for humanitarian aid and reconstruction. Head of the Independent Institution on Missing Persons in the Syrian Arab Republic, Carla Quintana, has emphasized that decades of conflict have caused a severe humanitarian disaster. Quintana urged international support for efforts to reunite missing individuals with their families. The organization is collaborating with Syrian authorities and civil society groups, while ongoing discussions with Syria's interim foreign minister, Asad al-Shibani, highlighted the urgent need for resources to facilitate the search for the missing. And now we move on to the latest developments in Germany.
Transaktional.
Die Amerikaner zusammenarbeiten.
Friedrich Merz, the winner of the German election, has stated that he will do everything in his power to swiftly form a government capable of taking decisive action. Merz emphasized the need to quickly restore their ability to act, enabling them to address domestic challenges effectively and reassert their presence in Europe. According to the polling institute Infratest, Merz's Conservative Party secured just under 30% of the vote. Germany's CDU leader Friedrich Merz has said his conservative bloc had won a sufficient number of seats in the national election to build a coalition with the centre-left Social Democrats. He added that talks would start in the next few days and last several weeks. He said key issues would be foreign relations, migration and the economy. Merz also said he hoped to convince Americans that it is in their mutual interest to have good transatlantic relations. Merz also welcomed the interest shown by British Prime Minister Keir Starmer in improving ties with Europe, adding that the two had spoken several times in the last few weeks. Ladies and gentlemen, we now move to the White House, where just moments ago, US President Trump stated that the Russia-Ukraine conflict could end within weeks and revealed plans to visit Russia when the time is right. Macron expressed to Trump his desire for strong US engagement in peace efforts and affirmed that Ukraine must be part of the talks to end the conflict. Macron also emphasized Europe's commitment to strengthening its defenses and informed Trump that Europeans are ready to send peacekeeping forces to Ukraine. Trump agreed, saying that Putin would accept the idea of European peacekeepers in Ukraine.
It was a week, and I would say Russia maybe 700,000 people. I think Ukraine probably a similar number, and that's not talking about the towns and the cities that have been blown up. That's talking about soldiers. This has been a horrible, bloody mess, and we're going to get it solved. We got to get it solved. And you know, we're not talking about America's soldiers from this country. We're talking about Russia and Ukraine. But on a humanitarian basis, we have to get this very, very bloody, savage problem solved. And I will say this also, it could lead to World War III if it's not solved. You know, there'll be a point at which it's not going to stop at those two countries. Already there's such involvement from other countries. And it could really lead to a very big war, World War III, and we're not going to let that happen either.
Would you support the idea to send European troops in Ukraine to back the ceasefire?
European troops may go into Ukraine as peacemakers. So when the agreement is done, they can watch that everything's followed properly. I don't think that's going to be a problem. And a lot of the European countries, I think, I don't want to speak for France, but I know that the presidents talked about doing that also. I think that'll be a very good day when we can go in as peacekeepers as opposed to what's going on right now with everybody being killed.
Will they have U.S. backing, those troops going into Ukraine? Will they have U.S. backing from U.S. troops?
Well, we're going to have a backing of some kind, and obviously the European countries are going to be involved, and I don't think you're going to need much backing. I think that's not going to be a problem. Once an agreement is signed, Russia's going to get back to its business, and Ukraine and Europe are going to get back to their business. I don't think it's going to be a problem.
Mr. President, will you meet with President Zelensky soon?
What?
Will you meet with President Zelensky soon?
I will be meeting with President Zelensky. In fact, he may come in this week or next week to sign the agreement, and which would be nice. I'd love to meet him. Would meet at the Oval Office. So the agreement's being worked on now. They're very close to a final deal. It'll be a deal with rare earths and various other things, and he would like to come, as I understand it, here to sign it, and that would be great with me. I think they then have to get it approved by their council or whoever might approve it, but I'm sure that will happen. Yeah, at some point I'll be meeting with President Putin also, yes. I don't know when we speak. We're trying to get this thing worked out, but yeah, at some point I'll be meeting with President Putin too.
Monsieur Macron, s'il vous plaît, est-ce que vous pouvez dire quelques mots en français?
I can say a few words in French.
Yes, please.
Non, le président l'a dit, je pense que c'est un moment important. C'est un moment important de la discussion. On veut bâtir la paix en Ukraine et le bilan qui a été rappelé, une réalité, il y a d'1 million de morts et de blessés depuis le début de ce conflit et de cette guerre d'agression. Notre volonté, c'est que cette paix dure, parce que nous avons eu un cessez-le-feu et une paix qui n'a pas été respectée. C'était les accords de Minsk, 1 puis 2. Et donc le corps de cette discussion, c'est de s'assurer d'abord qu'il y ait un cessez-le-feu, ensuite que les Ukrainiens soient impliqués. Je pense que ce que vient de dire un instant le président Trump est très important, c'est-à-dire qu'il va rencontrer rapidement le président Zelensky pour signer cet accord sur les minerais critiques et les terres rares, et que c'est aussi un moyen d'avoir une implication américaine forte. Les Européens sont prêts à prendre leur charge sous des formes diverses de soutien à l'armée ukrainienne, de présence y compris pour s'assurer que la paix soit durable. Et l'implication dans la durée des États-Unis d'Amérique à travers cet accord est une bonne chose. Et donc tout est encore à construire, et je ne veux pas préempter les discussions. Mais nous partageons le même objectif, et ce qu'on a discuté ce matin pendant 1 heure après la visioconférence ensemble, et ce qu'on va continuer de travailler, sont pour moi des bonnes avancées. Et l'annonce de...
Est-ce que l'intégrité territoriale de l'Ukraine est encore un objectif crédible?
This is exactly what we want to do. We want to build peace with Ukraine. As President Trump mentioned, there are already 1 million dead and wounded in Ukraine since the war began. We had a ceasefire in the past that was not respected. This was under the Minsk Agreements 1 and 2. President Trump, as he said, will be meeting with President Zelensky to sign a deal on rare earths. And we are pleased to see this very strong American involvement. Europe, of course, also stands ready to support Ukraine in various ways, supporting its military. And we don't want to preempt any sort of discussions that are currently underway, but we do share the same objective of building this lasting peace.
I just want to tell you a little story. So we were at the Eiffel Tower having dinner with your wonderful wife and with my wonderful wife, and we came out and he started speaking the French deal. And we didn't have an interpreter, and he was going on and on and on, and I was just nodding, yes, yes, yes. And he really sold me out, because I got back the next day and I read the papers. I said, that's not what we said. He's a smart customer, I will tell you that. Sure. Exactly what we agreed.
Mr. President, you called Zelensky a dictator. Would you use the same words regarding Putin?
I don't use those words lightly. I think that we're going to see how it all works out. Let's see what happens. I think we have a chance of a really good settlement between various countries. And, you know, you're talking about Europe, and you're talking about Ukraine as part of that whole situation. The other side has a lot of support also. So let's see how it all works out. It might work out. Look, you can never make up lives. The one thing you can make up the money, but you can't make up the lives. A lot of lives lost. I think probably a lot more lives than people are talking about. It's been a rough war, but I think we're close to getting it solved.
Ladies and gentlemen, That was the US President Trump from the White House, who stated that the Russia-Ukraine conflict could end within weeks and revealed plans to visit Russia when the time is right. French President Emmanuel Macron expressed to Trump his desire for strong US engagement in peace efforts and affirmed that Ukraine must be part of the talks to end the conflict. Macron also emphasized Europe's commitment to strengthening its defenses and informed Trump that Europeans are ready to send peacekeeping forces to Ukraine. Trump agreed, saying that Putin would accept the idea of European peacekeepers in Ukraine. And that brings us to the end of our news bulletin for now, but please, there is a reminder of the main stories we've been covering. UN chief warns of the West Bank annexation and escalating violence. Israel deploys tanks in the West Bank amid annexation calls. And the EU suspends sanctions on Syria to boost aid and reconstruction. That's all we have for now, but please don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram and TikTok at Q News EGY to stay informed. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more updates here on Q News.